Yeah, bring out the
Ooh,
cat.
cat.
It's okay, baby.
That's funny.
I'm allergic to cats, so that's gonna have to go.
Yeah, you're right next to each other too.
Take a Benadryl. I would like to share something that is probably super lame, but I'm kind of nerding out over it. Because I'm sure no one's interested, but in case anybody runs out of staff paper, I invented this pen. It's got 5 things on the end, and I make staves whenever I can put a staff wherever I want now. Because I'm definitely gonna run out of staff paper within like the next 2 or 3 weeks. So now I'm not only saving money on staff paper, but I'm also making it more convenient for my professors to grade an easily readable homework assignment. So that's my whatever.
Can you
Percussion
put
tip
that up?
Thursday.
Can you put that up close
Yes.
to your thing?
Yes.
That's
It's
pretty
about
cool.
16 gigs on this flash drive.
Is it just a bunch of like taped together like insides of pens?
Yeah, pretty much. They're just a bunch
Like,
of
very
pen
precisely?
refills. Bought the cheapest pack of pens at Walmart yesterday that I could easily take apart, and and then I put it in between some double-sided tape and popsicle sticks to keep it sturdy, and that's about it.
That's pretty awesome. I think you should go on Shark Tank.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I saw the idea on Amazon, and I was like, well, I could pay $12 for this device that'll probably run out of ink in about 3 days, or I could just make one myself.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's cool. I like that. That's pretty interesting. All right. Anything else before we get to some things? And Mrs. Rubens, I think you're muted. I think I saw her
There's
say
sad
something.
news, but they're about to cancel DCI right now.
The official
Oh.
statement happens at noon. So
Yeah, right now. Yeah.
I would think that was maybe to be expected in some ways. I don't know where y'all
Yeah.
expecting it.
Saw it coming.
Well, that's not good news. But obviously, for safety's sake and all of that, there's not a whole lot you can do. But they are what? Aren't they giving people with the age, like who are aging out, the option to do it again next
They
year?
said that for WDI, but we have no word on DCI right now.
I can only imagine that they would.
I think they will, but I honestly just don't know. I don't know about anything anymore, to be honest. Like I'm not trying to sound negative, but I just don't know about really anything anymore right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of like stuff up in the air, and what'll happen for summer classes or what'll happen for the fall classes or whatever. I just think the best thing you can do is do what you're doing. Stay where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
Be healthy. Get some sleep. There's probably not even too much. What am I trying to say? There's probably no such thing as too much sleep right now. As long as it's not getting in the way of your other like obligations.
That's true.
If you're still feeling productive and good about what you're doing, like get some good sleep. That's what everyone recommends to stay healthy. Mrs. Rubens, I didn't know if you wanted to say anything in particular as we sort of get off and running for. Really, today we wanted to just use as an opportunity to like help you maybe kind of organize yourself during this time, both musically and maybe non-musically. Mrs. Rubens, I didn't know if you wanted to chime in or anything.
No, I don't have anything right now, so I'm good.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Thanks.
Well, I read a lot of things. I read a lot of like articles, and I try not to freak out about life, but I read it for the sole purpose of just gathering information. And there's a lot of information, right? Every day. I don't know. Just show of hands, how many of you normally read like news updates about anything, let alone maybe like what's going on now in the world? Most of you try to avoid it. Who avoids it? Cool. Oh, I get it. And anyone want to chime in for a reason for avoiding it, if you're comfortable saying?
I think the main reason for me and my perspective is that media kind of overblows it just a little bit. They say that it's that bad when realistically it's kind of not.
Mm-hmm.
So I really don't want to worry about it to the point where it's like hysteria, but like, yeah, I'll be cautious about something, but I won't be over exaggerating about like a crisis or something.
Like finding a balance, I think, is an important thing too, right? Find the balance between what's there, what's important, and what's your own reality. And yeah, and trying not to be like afraid of anything, because I just feel like if you're following like local ordinances and stuff, meaning we're now officially in like a shelter in place, right? Like I think as of, well, at least in San Antonio we are. I don't. Several of you are not in San Antonio anymore, but obviously, like there's no like National Guard or like military presence in the streets. But obviously, if it came down to that, that would be a point where we might be a little scared, right? But I just think at the moment, like, just listen to what your cities are telling you, and you know, give yourself the opportunity to like kind of chill, which is actually weird because we normally get to this part of the semester and we're all like extra stressed, running around, doing 1,000 performances. And here it's like we get this really interesting pause. It's not a full pause, right? Because we still have like classes to do and work to finish and all that stuff. But here we are with like extra time. And at first, I think a lot of people probably are thinking like, well, what do I even do? What do I do with all this extra time? I did the same thing. I was supposed to give a recital this last Sunday, which I postponed. And now I'm probably just going to have to officially cancel it because we're not coming back, for even classes. So I'm like, I was doing all this practicing, all this prep, and now I don't have all the instruments that I was normally playing on. So now it's like, what do I do? And I'm sure many of you are in the same boat. Nick was scheduled to give his recital in a couple weeks. Many of you are probably starting to think about juries and wind ensemble, orchestra, obviously the indoor stuff, all that. There's a lot, right? There's like a lot to think about. But hopefully, I don't know, of the people that maybe have had lessons so far this week, I know some of you have yet to have one, like maybe this afternoon or maybe even tomorrow. I'm not really sure. But do you feel like that changed for you a little bit when we got a chance to talk? Like, okay, here's what we're doing moving forward, or here's some things you can do now that you're like, at home with the following instruments or practice pads and stuff. I guess that's more of a rhetorical question, but hopefully you found that things are starting to come into like a clearer purpose. So I guess just like there's all the like recommendation and advice that I think everyone can give from like a health perspective, right? Staying healthy, eating well, sleeping enough, all of those kinds of things. I don't want to undervalue any of that because, that's certainly important. I'm no expert on any of it, so I don't want to like, I don't know, Mrs. Rubens could probably give you way more advice when it comes to like, keeping your health up. But I think when it comes to like your, shall I say, productivity, the health of your productivity, and like making sure you're still feeling like you're a productive student, even for your own self, I think it's interesting now is that we can really dive into a lot of things that we usually don't have time to do, like listening to a lot of good music. I know a lot of you listen to music pretty often, but how many of you, for example, have like tried to discover a new band or something this week? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, like go do that. Like after we get off this, go try to find some band nobody's heard of, or ask some people. Yeah, ask your friends to send you some music or some recommendations, because I feel like now's the time. Or, for example, one of your teachers drops a name of a composer or a piece, and you take the like 10 minutes or whatever it is to go listen to it. In a way, it almost sounds weird when I say like you have the time to do that. I'm not saying that you're not busy, right? Because I'm sure you have plenty of things to think about and do. But you most likely have a little more time, right? You're not necessarily commuting to school, walking across campus. There's a lot of things where um that would normally require like time and effort and stuff. And there's a lot of that. Like I haven't driven my car hardly at all in like 2 weeks. I feel great, like saving the environment. Life is good. Um Even though gas is super cheap, it's like I don't need it. um so think of that, right? It's like I've seen like in some, productivity articles and stuff where people are like, make sure to stay on a schedule. And if your schedule normally included like a drive or a bus ride or like a walk across campus or something, like they say that maybe you're supposed to like substitute that with a little exercise or even a walk or even some kind of something to keep yourself in a routine, so that you're really thinking about, this is like my right now is becoming my new normal, instead of all of a sudden everything's out of whack. I don't have to be up until 1 p.m. All that kind of stuff. And I think that can do wonders for your overall productivity and your overall just like body clock, if you will. Again, I know nothing about health, um, other than I know that exercise is good for you, and I don't do enough of it. That's what I know. But I just feel like if you try to keep yourself on a schedule, that's number one. Meaning, could you really try to get up at the same time every day, even if that means you get up at noon, except for Thursday, right? Because you got to be somewhere by 11:30. Meaning, if you don't have to be anywhere until noon, and that's like just what your body naturally does, like why not? But like set a good like bedtime and like get up, do your thing, and have like actual, just like you do in normal circumstances, like actually schedule your time appropriately. Now's the time of the day. I can't remember. I had a lesson with somebody who said like, yeah, I'm trying to, when my classes normally meet, I'm trying to like do the homework or like do the work and the studying for that class during that normal time. I can't remember who that was. That was Michael. Yeah. He was basically saying like, when theory normally met, now I'm doing music theory. I think that's a really cool way to do it, because it's not like you trying to reinvent your schedule. It's you sticking to the same one. Um, so that I think is a really good suggestion, and thanks Michael for sharing that earlier this week. So I just feel like, man, that could do wonders for you just to keep in some kind of cycle, and not feeling like everything is just plastered on a wall and you're just trying to figure out what to do. Same thing goes with your practice time, meaning we're going to start giving you some assignments, probably a lot of practice pad stuff, maybe some mallet chops stuff, maybe some drum set stuff if you have one at home. Meaning there's a lot of things that you can still do even if you feel like you have very little at home. So now I'm going to turn it to you. Besides playing your practice pad or chopping out on mallets or practicing particular techniques, name a few other things that you could do that still keep you engaged as a percussionist and musician, that you feel like you could do without maybe the use of instruments. And feel free to just chime in, unmute yourself, and just go for it.
I think ear training, like for timpani, I kind of made it a little schedule where I do 30 minutes of ear training like every other day or something.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you do?
I haven't really started yet, so I'm not too sure, but what I'm planning on doing is just taking like an A and just singing different intervals, any interval I can, like just really work on any interval, like a minor third, for example, or singing a major six above an A, or even starting on a different pitch, such as C sharp, and then singing like a minor second or a major seventh, and just doing that a lot, as much as I can.
That's awesome. There you go. Meaning timpani doesn't have to be timpani. I probably said it 1,000 times. That half of timpani is the actual striking of the drum. The other half is like training your ear to do what it needs to do. And look, you all have time to do it. I know. I say that lightly, right? Not like trying to be a jerk or anything. Yeah, that's awesome. What else? Anyone else want to add to that?
I mean, I think something that kind of could be cool is like experimenting with like creating your own stuff. It's just my internet connection is unstable. I'm sorry if I sound weird. I don't know if anybody has seen. I use these a lot in like ensembles, like women ensemble stuff like that. I have these sticks that I wrapped yarn on the ends, so I kind of have my own. I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. I can, do whatever multi-percussion stuff I'm doing with the drumsticks, flip around, do a suspended cymbal roll. That's something that I use regularly, and that's something that I was able to kind of not invent, but of course make on my own. I'm taking advantage of a world music project at home with Angie and Josh. We're doing our own sort of instrument building projects independently, and like this could maybe kind of be a cool opportunity, just like experiment making your own things that you could be productive with in the future. I don't know.
That's awesome. And this is like the one that I feel like I mention every once in a while in lessons is, when your timpani mallets get really worn down and they're like the felt is not so puffy anymore, is they actually make these little things that are like almost like 3 little pins, and you can like puff up your mallets by sort of like digging in. You can make that with like a cork and like sticking some pins through the end. And so if you have like old timpani mallets that need like, to be revived, if you want to know how to do that, I can show you. It's not really all that crazy hard. So, there's some like DIY things you could do and like manage your stick and mallet collection. That's pretty cool. Homemade swizzle sticks, Matt. That's cool.
That's the
I like
one,
it.
yeah.
Can you see? I have that timpani tool. I don't know if you
Oh,
can
she's
see
got
that.
it.
Yeah.
Can you put it like right up to your video camera? There it
Is
is.
that me?
It looks a lot like Matt's staff drawing tool.
It does, doesn't
Yes.
it? It actually looks very dangerous, like. But it's little. It's little.
You kill a man with that.
Ow!
Yeah. That looks really But like, yeah, my teacher from undergrad had one of those too, and it's like you just take it and you kind of like dig into your mallets just a little. It's not like you're stabbing it and ripping the felt out. You're just trying to kind of like literally like fluff it. So there you go. That's really cool. Good. What else? What are some other things like that you can really do during this time, whether it's for your lessons or not, or for your classes or not? Think
I guess
creatively.
get more, at least for me, I get more exposed to the structure and overall creation of composition. Like for me, I've always like wanted to write music instead of just like listening to it or performing it. It's very interesting to me to how it's structured, how every piece ever created for percussion or not, how it's structured and how it aligns for an ensemble.
Yeah. Anyone else thought about writing music but hasn't really done it all that much? I'll put myself in that category. I know some of you are comp majors, so like that's what you do. So what's really cool, and it's hard, right? Because you don't have maybe an instrument or like a marimba or something in front of you. But there's a lot of people that write music for instruments that they don't play, or that they don't currently have the instrument in front of them, so that they're not thinking about, oh, I'm going to do these triple laterals or whatever. They're just thinking about music and not the techniques of the instrument. And if you decided like you wanted to write something, it doesn't have to be this like crazy, Beethoven, whatever, like thing it could just be something for you. It could be something that you play. It could be something designed for sixth graders. It could be a cadence for like a drum line. It could be anything. It could be like a new drum set groove that you want to write and you think it might work for a tune in a band at some point. There's a million things in that realm of simply just writing music, which I think are awesome. So that's a good one, Nick, to bring up. And it's sort of like I'm in the same boat. Okay, now I get to write something. I have time to write. I sit down, and then I don't even know what to do because I have 1,000 thoughts and none of them make any sense. But take one little gem of an idea and just jam on it. Or like Nick was saying, listen to some other pieces of music and study them. Like see if you can find the scores online and try to figure out what's going on in this piece. Do a little, it doesn't have to be some crazy, really deep analysis, but like, okay, what's the form of this piece? Is there a form? Is it simple? Is it really complex? Are there repeating things? Like, what am I, and then maybe you write a little mini snare drum etude or something based on that same form. And that takes some effort. It does, because it takes some really deep listening and it takes a lot of self-motivation to do. So I think that's really good. So let me maybe go the next step and just give you some ideas for like organization / self-motivation, because trust me, I'm...
Can I add something real quick to the practicing from home, stuff like that?
Yeah, that's Joaquin. Yeah, Joaquin. Sorry, it's like your audio changed.
Sorry, I'm outside, or
No, you're fine.
actually in a car. But
you're good.
One thing that I guess like some people have, I think somebody already brought it up, but I'll reinstate. When you're listening to a piece of music, whether it be like a classical or even like a hip hop, like modern day stuff like that, try to find like maybe the key it's in and maybe even like transcribe it for like your own, maybe for like piano or for like marimba. Something to practice like for your oral skills, dictation, because I know some of us have like a dictation quiz in like the next 2 weeks. So a little practice.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Meaning like go listen to some like Kanye West and try to like figure out the chord progressions or something. Yeah, anything. That's really helpful. Yeah, Ralph is going to go next.
Yeah, I actually started doing that. Like I'm trying to make that a hobby. It's just taking some popular music and kind of transposing it to maybe like a drumline setting or marching band or whatever, and just having fun with it. And
yeah,
it's actually a lot of fun, and I'm enjoying it a lot.
That's cool. Do you find yourself doing it like for a chunk of time every day?
Yeah.
Or just like here and there? Nice. That's awesome. And I mean, like maybe that's a good substitute for, okay, well, normally I was in this at this time, or normally I was practicing at this time. So now what am I doing during that same time?
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. Oh, look, you can raise your hand in these things. Nick just did. Is that for you to comment on this, or was that earlier and I just missed it?
No, I wanted to add on something of the composition. There was a Google Doodle that released a long time ago, like I think last year, that was basically centered around the celebration of Bach, Johann Bach. And what they did, it was interesting because like this Google Doodle was like nothing I've seen before. It was basically a composition, or like a small composition software basically, and where you would put in a melody and it would how to say, the computer would get the melody and then it would formulate it to where it can make a harmony, where it would automatically add parts of a harmony and then it would give you what it is. So like I've had a really fun time with it because it's taking a melody and it's creating something something that I love listening to. And yes, it's like it doesn't take much effort because it's just creating like one line, I guess you could say. But it's interesting to see how different parts of instruments, you know, stack up together.
That's cool. Do you mind if it's easy to share? Is it something you could throw into the chat or email to the studio?
I actually have it. Yeah, I can email it. I actually have it like right here in front of my computer.
That'd be great. I think that we can check it out, right? It's even more important these days to like throw that stuff out there at each other and go, hey, this is this thing I'm thinking about. Do y'all have your own like no professors included chat in some form? Like you got to have some way of communicating that doesn't involve us, right? Where you can make fun of me and how much I talk and stuff. Like totally do that. And
we have one that includes me, but not you.
Nice. Okay, perfect.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No, I figured, but I like it.
That's
Why
just
not?
where we you. And then you should do one where they make fun of me. I'm joking.
We have that one too.
Don't you guys have a, like each band has a group me, like symphonic band section, wind ensemble section?
That's cool.
Wind ensemble has a Facebook. That's about it.
Nice.
Okay, well, start something then. Come on.
Yeah. I think that's a good thing for y'all. I know sometimes we put stuff in the you know, in the studio chat, the one that's got me and Rubens on it. Like feel free. Like it at this time, maybe we're not sending out as many like urgent rehearsal notifications. Like sometimes I'll turn on the notifications and sometimes I'll have them off and I'll just check it more like my email. But that's a good way to communicate, or just create your own. Nick has turned into a cat's tail. That's funny. Anyways, yeah, I think I was talking with my wife Lauren about some of this stuff too, and she was saying about how staying connected is really, really important. Meaning not just with your teachers who are probably asking for certain levels of communication, but also with each other, because while you probably don't get to see each other in person, I mean, you can do this anytime, right? You have a Zoom account. You can start a Zoom hang with the studio, or just a few of y'all, not to do with a project, and just say, hey, I'm having lunch. What about you? What's going on? Obviously, you can do that like FaceTime or just, you know, call each other too. But obviously, like, okay, there's the hang aspect, but then there's also the like, you know, you might normally see somebody in the hallway and go, hey, I'm practicing this thing. Can you come listen to me play? Do that this way. Send them a video. Like, take a video of yourself playing some lesson material and send it to somebody and get some feedback, you know, of people that aren't necessarily your teachers, who might have been working on similar stuff or are working on stuff that's the same like right now. I think that's a great way to like connect to each other and be still engaged in the music that you're doing. And then one of the other big things I'm thinking about is not only making a daily schedule that you follow, and it doesn't have to be the same every day, and you could give yourself some flexibility if you're okay with that. But also including in that schedule is a to-do list. And sometimes, I don't know, I have a love-hate relationship with to-do lists. But, okay, let's say I've got 2 hours or something where I have, like, practice time available. Okay, well, that's cool. But what if you're like, you get to that time and you're like, okay, well, now I'm just jamming out on a practice pad. That's fine. But in order to, like, really feel like, hey, I'm still using this time effectively, what am I going to do during that time? What are my goals? Set some objectives. And if the objectives are related to your lesson, or maybe they're related to, I'm going to do some composition stuff, or I'm going to like just sit down and dedicate some time to listening to music or watching some videos, I think that's really important. Like really, really, really important right now. And you're probably thinking like, well, yeah, I'll do that. But that takes a little bit of effort, and it's got a lot of reward on the other end, because I don't think you'll get this kind of time in the future. And I don't mean that weird. I just mean it in like reality, right? Like, let's hope another event like this does never happen again in the world. But now that it has, what can we do to still be like on top of it? So being really organized with your time, just in a general sense, but then the to-do list is a way of being organized with your time in a more specific way. So I would try to do the same kind of thing when I was doing a lot of recital prep is, okay, during this, I have time to play this instrument and this instrument. And my to-do list is I'm really going to focus on this particular section because it needs work. And maybe now you're like, okay, because the tables have turned. Here's the time I have available. I got 30 minutes to play some snare drum. Great. 30 minutes is a decent chunk of time. You can get a lot done in 30 minutes. Maybe it's the first time you've played in a day, right? A little bit of warm up, a little bit of some different techniques, and maybe a little bit of hitting an etude or something that you're working on. Even that can give you more direction than practice time in your schedule. Meaning, okay, practice time on snare drum, practice time on ear training, practice time on double laterals on a table. You don't need a marimba to work on four mallet technique necessarily. And circling back to another sort of like creative practicing idea that I've given this to a couple people is pull out any music that you have or ask your friends to send you something and time yourself, like literally set like a stopwatch and start naming the notes in the piece as fast as you can. Much easier to do with a single line melody than say like a four mallet piece or a piano piece or whatever. But okay, let's just say it's a violin sonata or something. Okay, turn on the timer, give yourself a certain amount of measures that you're going to look at and go name the notes. Just name them like as quickly as you can and see how long it takes you, and then put it away. It's like sight reading, right? Without the instrument. And I told a couple people about this too, is okay, next time turn on the Met and say the notes in time with the metronome. So a lot of you have the Goldenberg book, which is a really great, a lot of people use that for some sight reading stuff. There's plenty of other resources like that. So feel free to ask us if you need some. But how many of you have always said in your head, like, yeah, I really think I should try to work on sight reading? Yeah, the world, myself included. There you go. So if you don't have the Goldenberg book, there are plenty of cool resources you could find online, things you could probably even download, and a lot of free music on what's called IMSLP. Have you all heard of this? Some of you have, maybe some of you haven't. IMSLP.org.com. I can't remember. If you just search IMSLP, it'll show up. It's like a free music, like public domain music database. So when a piece is like copyright expires, it's made public to like anybody. So for example, if you wanted at some point in your life to learn to play one of the Bach cello suites on marimba, you can go to IMSLP and you can search for Bach cello suites and you could find them. Instead of buying the Lee Howard Stevens version or whatever, or some publisher's version of it and paying the money. I'm telling you from personal experience, that's what I did. I found these, and they're actually really fun to play, especially if you're like wanting to get better at reading bass clef. Leo wants to say something.
Just a warning on that though. The notation could be weird because it could be Bach's original notation or it could be an edited version. But it's
Totally
still
true. Totally true. So obviously, like, you gotta like kind of pick and choose what you're doing, or what you're looking at. But I think that's a good point to bring up, is that free online resources, just like anything online, like YouTube videos and tutorials and stuff, are not always good or not always 100% like what you need. So obviously you just have to go into like all that stuff with a filter. But does that make sense? So meaning like you can literally practice sight reading without an instrument, which I think is fantastic. What was my other thing I was going to say? Well, when we get together as like studio class or seminar, I always call it studio class. I don't know. I've just had that habit forever. Is when we get together on Thursdays at 11:30, I mean, we're going to talk about some different topics. We're going to mention some different things. It might be stuff sort of related to this, but it's probably going to be a lot more like, okay, now let's get creative. Let's do some stuff together. And I think it's important for everybody to bring some kind of idea, whether it's to your lesson or to this or to our percussion ensemble meetings or your whatever other classes are meeting, like on some kind of regular basis, is bring an idea, bring a question, bring a thought, bring something new to share, because I think that's how we really stay connected during all this time, is sharing ideas. I mean, that's really what the internet was made for in the first place. And now more than ever, it's like, cool. I can talk to anyone in the world. I can get any answer I want from the Google in point whatever seconds. Look some stuff up. Come to class and go, hey, you know what? I know this is completely not related to our last topic, but I was thinking about this orchestral excerpt. Can we talk about it? Yeah, of course. Okay, here's a link to some videos. Here's the music. Let's all study it together. So what might be interesting in our last couple minutes is to hear if there's anything. Well, first of all, if you have any questions, maybe, or comments, I'll do that first. Like questions or comments about anything that we've just sort of mentioned.
Yes, I have something that I wanted to share.
Okay.
So what I've been doing is this is unrelated to percussion, but as a music educator, I've been trying to learn, other instruments, if you have any, like trumpet or flute and then trying to read like the written notes, or maybe transposing the written notes to like concert pitch as an added challenge. And maybe try to read like a trumpet part or something like that, and then play it on the piano, but play it in concert pitch. I would think that would be like an added challenge to the whole like sight reading.
Transposition sight reading.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's hard. That's awesome, though. That's a good idea. Cool. Anything else?
I have something.
Go for it.
So everyone has had this book in their hand at some point, the sight singing book. Like that can be used from way more than just sight singing. If you have like 30 seconds out of your day, just go to like the first one. Like just play it on a keyboard or like play it on your mental marimba or your mental xylophone, like any of that. That's what I usually do.
That's
like when I
cool.
have to go like teach kids like how to play mallets, like I use that book a lot because it's all stepwise for like the first half. And then it like does skips and things like that.
That's great. But it's something that's literally like sequential that you don't have to think about. Like, that's my beef with the Goldenberg book sometimes is that, you know, there's a handful of melodies that are like that, what you said. They're stepwise, it might have some skips or like, and then all of a sudden it's like way different, you know, like we're all over the keyboard playing like marimba stuff instead of just melodies. That's awesome. That's great. And again, like I like the idea of being able to say the notes in time or to be able, like you said, see the notes on the keyboard, like literally in the back of your eyelids. That's like a really good practice technique that takes a lot of energy and is kind of exhausting, but it's pretty cool. So that's good. Anything else before I ask you one more question? Jason's going to say something.
Jason, go ahead.
If anybody wants it, I have like a packet of like floor exercises just to chop out to.
Sweet.
And I've had this for like years and I've used it. I use it on tour too. So if you want me to send the PDF, I can send in the studio chat.
Go for it. I say yes. So Nick's going to send us something. Jason's going to send us something. That's
I
great.
have some of those too. They're probably way different than that.
Let's just share them. I say share them. Maybe sending them in an email might be the best. That way, if you need to describe, I don't know, maybe whatever y'all prefer. It almost doesn't matter at this point. Emails for me, it's a little more. I can organize that more than I can say our like group me chat. But either way,
I can show my thing right now if you want. Is that fine?
yeah, you can throw it in the chat if you want, and I think people can maybe just copy it from there. That's good.
Okay.
Okay, so in our last, Valeria's got one. You're muted.
Okay.
There we go.
I have this book that I got at the library at UTSA. It's like really old, but it has like a bunch of excerpts that you can sight read to. So if anyone wants like a page out of this, I can send that to you. What's the book, Valeria? Who wrote it? Robert McCormick. Oh, that's a great book. It's a lot of good.
It's almost like a percussion methods kind of book, right? Or it's like it's got a bunch of different like explanations of techniques and like for all instruments.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, so for real, like I mean, I have a whole bunch of books at my house. I'm sure Rubens has a bunch of books at her house.
Yeah.
If you're like, hey, I need this, or I'm really wanting to work on this, just let us know and we can send you some things to just start, even if it's not related to your lessons necessarily. So here's my question then. Okay, what are some things that you've always wanted, and we're not going to be able to describe them now, but we're going to take them down as sort of notes, if you will, for future seminars. What are some things that you would like to either know about, hear us talk about, or be able to like have more information about during the next several weeks? It could be anything from jobs and careers to, hey, what about that tambourine excerpt, to hey, I've always wanted to know more about resources for this particular style of drumming or mallet playing or whatever. Give us some of your, like, think for a couple seconds here and then give us like your thoughts on what do you want to know? What are some things you want to learn about?
I would like to learn about like the pandito, more about that, and the style of playing.
Okay, Nick wants to learn about Pandero. I'm just putting it in the chat to write some notes down. Pandero you can practice on a plate or a frisbee or a regular tambourine. It's pretty straightforward, actually. It's not straightforward to play it, but learning it is more straightforward than you think. You don't have to have one. That's cool. I like that. Keep them coming.
I have one, but it's kind of weird.
I love it. Weird is good.
I don't know how to like completely describe it, but like approaches to introducing new topics to like little kids, like 6th or 8th grade, like getting them ready for high school, like when and how you should approach possibly introducing things. Because right now I'm struggling getting my kids with 4 mallets. So.
Okay. So I would call that like, yeah, like you could call it curriculum. You could also call it like the sequencing of your curriculum within.
Sequencing probably.
Yeah, like within like middle school percussion ensemble. I mean, that's interesting. Or middle school percussion classes. Which is, I think, a really interesting class. Okay, I'll just write this in the chat as well. Sequencing / curriculum ideas for middle school percussion. That's cool. What else? That's a good topic. We could even probably spend a whole time talking about things that are appropriate for that level, things that are appropriate for high school, you know, as you go from, you know, Leo.
Like just more information about sound production or like digital audio workplaces and stuff like that.
Sound
how
production,
to maneuver that.
Digital audio. Sorry, I'm typing what you just said. Meaning like how to work electronic type stuff / maybe recording. Is that kind of what you're thinking of?
Yeah.
I
Cool.
have a question.
Yeah.
If we were to do that, could we possibly get Bergman and or Kaplow? Because they both teach those classes.
Yeah, I think that would be an awesome one, where basically we get them in the mix. You know, like right now I'm hooked. Yeah.
Kaplow does digital music production, and then Bergman does audio. So Bergman's more like recording and like physical systems in person, and then it would be probably more Kaplow for like online, like different DAWs and things like that.
Yeah, I think Kaplow would be a good guy to bring in. I mean, he's a percussionist too, right? How many of you have met Joe Kaplow before? Some of you?
Awesome.
He's a cool guy, vibraphone player, good drum set player. And now he's teaching some, you know, he teaches, digital music production. That's cool.
Well, he played in the fall with us, I'll remember.
Yeah. Yeah, if you were in percussion ensemble, that's right. I was like, man, I almost forgot. That's a cool idea. And that way, even at a basic level, if you get the like how to use maybe an audio interface, how to use you know, Lindsay mentioned the word DAW, you know, a digital audio workstation. What does it mean? Like, what is all that stuff? And what's just like a real quick, brief intro to it? I think that's cool. What else?
I think if people have ideas that maybe you come up with later too, don't forget to write to us. But Matthew, you have some.
Yeah, I kind of think about this a lot, and this might sound kind of vague, but I think it'd be kind of cool to maybe talk about just like again, as vague as it sounds, just like interpreting the ink on a page. Like I think it was Leo, he kind of mentioned something about like if you look at something that's super original on like IMSLP or something like that, like say an excerpt from like a Bach partiita or something like that, and you just have a bunch of notes, no dynamics, and it's all written for articulations to be played on a violin or a cello or whatever. Figuring out how you can use those markings to influence how you play it as a percussionist. I think about that a lot, and it's like especially like trying to like imagine myself not necessarily like as a violinist or whatever, but like without referencing a recording necessarily. I mean, I always try to think the people who played this music originally, you know, they didn't have a recording to reference, so how were they influenced to make their choices? Why did they make the choices they make? And how can we get those choices just by looking at the ink on the page, I guess?
I just wrote your TMEA title. Tell me if that works for you.
Okay. It works great for me.
Yeah, I love it. Meaning we're going to run into not just percussion music that gives us some interesting notational things and implications, but hopefully at some point in everyone's lives, you'll play some non-percussion music on percussion instruments, and we have to really dive into interpretation. So I love it. That's cool.
And I would even kind of say the same thing, like if you're looking at an orchestral excerpt, you know, how can you make these, I don't know, like these like 5 or 6 cymbal crashes that, you know, might just say forte. How can you make that more into a musical phrase when you just have, maybe you just have the score, or I know timpanists, well, from what I understand, timpanists will often just like reference the score. They do a lot, you know, it seems like they do a lot of score study too. I'm sure, you know, if you've ever played like, you know, excerpts and lessons, I know I did that a lot, just like looking at scores and studying that along, those kinds of things, like just trying to figure out how I can make something more musical, even if it's like with our own rep too, perhaps. I don't know.
Love it. And that's even, I think, even separate topic of orchestral excerpts.
Yeah.
I think we've talked a little bit about it together, but I think, you know, as we kind of, seems like a long ways away, but band and orchestra auditions really are only coming up in several months. So what if we actually dedicate a studio class to that? And then another one to sort of like the idea of musical interpretation. And those are related, but there's certainly some good topics in both of those. I like it. Well, in the interest of time, because we're a couple minutes over, if you have more of those, send those ideas to me and Mrs. Rubens, and we'll do our best to like include them. I'm glad to hear that there's like a handful of them already that people are interested in and wanting to dive into. So keep doing that. Keep thinking about that stuff. And keep being creative and organized and connected. And like I said, and probably said 1,000 times, if you have any thoughts or questions or just want to ask about something, don't hesitate.
Yeah. I have
All
one
right.
more, just a little short thing to say to everybody, just to add on to what Mr. McStuckey said in the beginning, and I'll be quick, but it's really, I think it's important for y'all to get out of bed and get showered and get up. It's very easy at this time to just kind of lazy around, right? And wait to do that later. And if you find, especially if you find yourself feeling just a little sad and depressed, as it's a weird time, open up your curtains, get sunlight going on, get out of your bed, get outside. The vitamin D is really important for lots of reasons, but just the sunlight is going to be good for you. Okay, so I'm not saying you have to start a big exercise program. I'm just saying just get outside and get some fresh air. Yeah. If you can't, you're not outside, just do open your blinds and stuff. And another thing that I have found helpful in the past, and some of you may already do this, there's a book out called The Artist's Way. And one of the things she recommends, it's about like artists that get maybe blocked, like they can't write, they can't perform, and they can't do stuff. She talks about journaling, and this would be a time to maybe do that. And I think some guys think journaling is for girls, but it's for everybody. And you might, and what her recommendation is that you wake up in the morning and it's the first thing you do. And I'll tell you that the first time I did it, my first words were like, "This is stupid." That's what I wrote. This is stupid. I can't write. I don't know what to write. But that led into more, and it's been a really helpful thing over years for me. I don't do it all the time, but I'm trying to do it now because it is such a strange time. Like I think about, well, maybe 20 years from now, I'll look back at it and go, oh, what happened during that time? You know, and what was going on and how did I feel about it? So this is a perfect opportunity for something like that too. Again, you don't have to be a creative writer. I'm telling you, I wrote, this is stupid. That's what I said. Okay. So take care of yourselves, right? Okay.
Cool.
We're going to see some of you at 4 today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Y'all have your assignments. Some of you have assignments.
I don't think we have any presentations today. I think those are set for Tuesday. Might be the same one.
Oh, okay.
Or the first one. That's what I meant to say.
Okay.
But that's okay. But you should all be starting your percussion ensemble project assignments.
Excellent.
If you do like 2 a week, I think you'll be good. All right, everybody. Good to see you.
Go Runners.
Enjoy the rest of y'all's day and week, and we'll see you very soon.
Okay. Bye.
All right. See y'all.